Stories whisper, stories keep. The fire burns, but you won't sleep. Camp creeps, camp creeps.
Sometimes houses remember things we don't. You can patch the holes, repaint the walls, tear down the ceilings, but it doesn't matter. A house keeps what it wants. And if you listen long enough, sometimes you'll hear it breathing. Sometimes it whispers back. Welcome back to Camp Creeps. This story is about a man who heard a voice coming from inside his walls. At first, he thought it was the pipes. Then he thought it was his mind. But the truth was much worse. Tonight's story is called The Voice Inside the Walls. Jack Mercer was the kind of man who didn't believe in haunted houses. He worked construction for 20 years, knew how old wood settled, how pipes groaned, how air moved through crawl spaces. There was always a reason, always an explanation. That's why he didn't think twice when he bought the place on Ridgeway Lane. 2 bedrooms, cheap and in livable condition according to the listing. The kind of house that leaned slightly when the wind blew, but nothing a man like him couldn't fix. He moved in midwinter. The air smelled of dust and mothballs, faintly metallic, like something had rusted in the walls. The realtor told him the last owner was an old woman who'd lived there alone for decades. She'd passed quietly in her sleep. Jack liked that. Quiet. The first night, the house gave the usual groans, the kind that come from cold air shrinking wood. He didn't mind. He slept like he always did, one eye open, one ear tuned for creaks. It was the second night when he heard it. At first, it was a faint tapping behind the wall above his bed. Slow, irregular, like a loose pipe knocking against something. He tapped back, 2 short knocks. It stopped. He smiled. "That's what I thought," he muttered, turning over. But then, from somewhere deep inside the wall, came a soft sound. Not tapping this time. A voice. Faint. Muffled. Whispering through plaster and insulation. He froze. It wasn't words. Not at first. Just the rhythm of speech. The soft cadence of someone talking low, as if not to be overheard. He sat up slowly, heart thudding. "Hello?" The whisper stopped. Silence. He waited. Counted to 10. Then it came again, closer this time, behind the electrical outlet. "Can you hear me?" The voice was small, hoarse, like someone speaking through a wet cloth. Jack leaned closer, his mouth dry. "Who's in there?" No answer. He got out of bed, pulled the dresser aside, and pressed his ear to the wall. The voice came again, just above a whisper. "Please." That was all. Just that one word. He stepped back, rubbing his arms against the chill creeping up his spine. "Old pipes," he muttered. "Just air." He turned on the light. The room looked the same. Old wallpaper, flaking edges, a single picture nail in the center of the far wall. But the air felt different now. Thicker, damp. When he turned off the light, he could still hear it. Not words this time, just the slow sound of breathing coming from inside the walls. By morning, the sound was gone. Jack spent an hour walking through every room, pressing his ear to the drywall, checking vents, tapping pipes. Nothing. It was probably the heating system, he told himself. Houses that old always had quirks. He made coffee, turned on the radio, and told the silence he wasn't scared of it. That night it came back. He was sitting at the kitchen table, reading an old repair manual, when he heard the first tap. Faint, deliberate, from the wall beside the fridge. He looked up. The sound came again. 2 knocks this time, then nothing. Jack set the book down, staring at the wallpaper. Air in the lines, he muttered. Old houses breathe. That's all. But then, faint, barely there, he heard it again. Not tapping, scraping. A long, dragging sound like fingertips moving along the inside of the wall. Then, a whisper. Jack. He froze. It wasn't just a voice. It knew his name. He stood so fast the chair fell over. Who's there? Silence. He grabbed a flashlight and started checking the vents. The sound seemed to follow him, faintly, always just behind him. When he opened the crawlspace door, cold air rushed out like the house was exhaling. He climbed inside, knees on cold concrete, light trembling in his hand. Dust motes swirled like ash. The air smelled wrong, damp and sweet, like mildew and something older. He crawled toward the sound, following it through the narrow tunnel that ran behind the kitchen. The beam of the flashlight caught insulation, wood beams, wires, and something else. A patch of drywall that looked newer than the rest. Fresh plaster, smoother, slightly off color. He reached out, pressed his hand against it. The wall felt warm. The whisper came again, directly behind it this time. Please. His breath caught. Who are you? It's dark. Jack's throat tightened. He could hear breathing now, slow, steady, human. He crawled backward fast, hitting his head on a beam. The flashlight flickered out. For a few seconds, the only sound was that breathing, echoing faintly through the dark. Then, silence. He scrambled out of the crawlspace, slammed the hatch shut, and stood there shaking, the flashlight beam dancing across the floor. He didn't sleep. Instead, he sat in his truck with the headlights pointed at the house until dawn. The old wallpaper in the windows looked like skin, stretched tight, rippling in the light. The next day, he called his old foreman, Larry, and asked if he could borrow a wall scanner. Another fixer-upper, huh? Larry laughed. Yeah, Jack said. Something like that. He didn't mention the voice. When the scanner beeped over that same patch of wall, it showed something inside. He thought it was a pipe at first. Then he realized the shape was wrong. Long, thin, irregular, like an arm. The machine kept clicking higher and higher until the display went red. Then the whisper came again, faint but clear. Jack, help me. He dropped the scanner. The house exhaled. A faint trickle of dust fell from the ceiling. The walls seemed to shift, just slightly, like something inside them had moved. He backed toward the door, heart hammering. Behind him, the radio turned on by itself, soft static filling the room. And through that static, a voice whispered, "Don't open the wall." By the next evening, Jack couldn't take it anymore. He'd left the radio unplugged. The wall scanner locked in his truck. But still, the whispers came. They didn't wait for night anymore. He'd hear them while shaving, muffled through the plaster. Sometimes they whispered words, sometimes only the rhythm of speech, like a conversation happening in another room, too low to understand. It wasn't constant, just enough to make him listen. By sundown, he'd made up his mind. He was going to open the wall. He started with a knife, scoring the plaster gently, like surgery. Dust drifted in soft clouds. The air grew heavier, warmer. Every cut he made, the sound got louder. Not the whisper, the breathing. The wall felt soft under his hand, almost spongy. When he pressed harder, faint warmth came through, like heat from a living thing. He stopped once, leaned back, staring at it. The hatch wasn't big, maybe 2 feet wide, but something about it felt wrong. It wasn't centered with the studs. It bulged slightly. He switched to a hammer. The first hit cracked the plaster. The second made it crumble away in wet chunks. Behind it was black, not the darkness of a hollow wall, but something deeper. He leaned close. "Hello?" For a moment, nothing. Then a sound like a sigh escaped from the opening, long and shivering, followed by a whisper, "You shouldn't have." He stumbled back. "Who are you?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, something moved inside, a faint scraping like fingernails against wood. Jack shined his flashlight through the hole. The beam hit insulation, torn, soaked, discolored. He pulled it back with his gloved hands. It came away slick and damp. The smell hit next. Rot, earth, iron. He gagged, covering his mouth. The light caught something pale beneath the insulation. At first, he thought it was a bundle of wires. Then he saw it flex. Fingers. He froze, breath held. The fingers twitched once, then went still. He dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, beam cutting across the room. The voice came again, hoarse, desperate. "Please, help me." Jack backed up fast, tripping over the toolbox. Jesus Christ. The breathing grew louder, faster, in, out, until it matched his own. The wall pulsed. He ran to the breaker panel, killed the power. The house fell silent. For a long time he stood there in the dark, heart hammering. The hole gaped behind him like a wound. He tried to convince himself it was an animal. A raccoon, maybe. Maybe it crawled in and died. But then he remembered the way it had said his name. He turned back toward the wall. The hole looked larger than before. He approached slowly, flashlight shaking in his hand. Inside, the fingers were gone. Only a faint glimmer of wetness remained. He reached out with the light, peering deeper into the cavity, and saw something that made his blood run cold. The inside of the wall wasn't wood or insulation anymore. It was flesh, pale, translucent, and breathing. He stumbled back, gasping. The flashlight slipped from his hand and landed pointing upward. For a second, he thought he saw a face behind the plaster. Stretched thin, features distorted, mouth open, eyes wide. Then it vanished. The whisper came again, softer now, almost soothing. "You opened it. Now it's awake." Jack staggered backward, eyes darting around the room. The floor creaked under his feet, but not from his weight. The boards rose slightly as though something beneath them was shifting, stretching. The entire house gave a long, low groan. He turned to run, but the doorway was already dripping. Thin streams of moisture ran down the frame like sweat. The smell of wet wood filled the air. From inside the walls, faint voices began to whisper in unison, dozens of them, overlapping, layered, all saying the same thing. "You shouldn't have opened it." The lights flickered once. Then the wall exhaled. Warm, damp air rushed out through the hole, hitting him in the face. He stumbled back, choking. Somewhere behind him, a faucet turned on. The whisper came again, not from the hole this time, but from inside his head. "We were quiet. You made us breathe again." It was subtle at first, heavier, warmer, thick enough to taste. The walls sweated. Water ran down them in slow, glistening lines, pooling along the baseboards like the house was crying. Jack tried to leave. He packed a bag, loaded his truck, and turned the key. The engine wouldn't start. He popped the hood, found nothing wrong, slammed it shut and looked up at the house. The curtains in the front window had moved. Not like they'd been blown by wind. They'd pulled back, slowly, like someone was watching. He stood in the driveway for a long time before going back inside. The moment he crossed the threshold, the door slammed behind him. The whole frame shuddered. Dust drifted down from the ceiling like ash. He whispered, "All right. What do you want from me?" The house answered with a groan. He could hear it clearly now, that breathing sound. It was everywhere. The floorboards flexed slightly with every inhale, the wallpaper rippling like muscle beneath skin. The noise filled the air, soft and steady, in time with his own chest. He pressed his hand to the nearest wall. It was warm. When he pressed harder, it pressed back. Jack stumbled backward, tripping over a chair. The wood creaked beneath him like ribs cracking. The whispers returned, not one voice now, but many. At Jack. "Jack, it hurts. We can't breathe." He clapped his hands over his ears. "Stop." The whispers stopped instantly. The breathing didn't. It got louder, deeper, like the entire house had taken a long, deliberate inhale. And then, faintly, through the static hum of it, another voice rose. Calmer, sharper, the same one he'd heard through the radio before. "Don't open the wall." He froze. "Who are you?" The radio hissed from the kitchen, though it was still unplugged. He turned toward it slowly. The voice came again, clearer now. "Jack, listen to me. You can't fix it. You are it." He stared at the radio. His throat went dry. What does that mean? The floor shifted under his feet. The house inhaled again. "You let it breathe. Now it remembers." The sound rose all around him. The same rhythmic exhale, wet and low, vibrating the floorboards, the windows, the ceiling. He stumbled toward the door, tried the knob. It wouldn't turn. The metal pulsed faintly beneath his palm, warm and slick. He pulled harder until his fingers slid off. They left streaks of moisture behind, like sweat or condensation. He turned back. The wall where he'd cut the hole was changing. The plaster around the edges bulged and twisted, reshaping itself. The faint imprint of a face was forming, stretched skin, hollow eyes, lips parting slightly with each breath. "Jack." It wasn't one voice anymore. It was hundreds, all whispering in unison, rising and falling with the house's slow rhythm. He staggered back until his shoulders hit the opposite wall. The surface behind him flexed like a lung. He pushed away, gagging. "Please, stop." The breathing quickened. The floor heaved upward. Something wet hit his shoe. He looked down and saw water bubbling up through the cracks between the boards, dark, thick, carrying the smell of iron and earth. The house was bleeding. He dropped to his knees, gasping. Every breath he took now felt too heavy, too deep. The air was thick as water. He could hear it inside his chest. The same rhythm, the same pulse. Each inhale made the walls expand. Each exhale made them tremble. "You opened it," whispered the voices. "Now we can breathe again." He coughed hard, clutching his chest. Water dripped from his mouth, clear and endless. He fell forward, catching himself on his hands, and realized the floor beneath him wasn't wood anymore. It was warm. It was soft. He pressed down and felt it give slightly, like wet skin. He screamed and scrambled backward, leaving handprints behind. Dark, wet handprints that slowly filled with water. The face on the wall smiled. "Thank you, Jack." The house exhaled one final time, long and deep. The lights flickered out. When they came back on, the hole in the wall was gone. No crack, no plaster, no sign of it ever being there. The air was still. The breathing stopped. For the first time in days, the house was silent. Jack stood there shaking, staring at the wall, whispering to himself, "It's over. It's done." He didn't notice the faint ripple beneath the paint. He didn't hear the voice whisper, softer than breath, "It's never over, not when we share your lungs." The silence didn't last. Jack woke up sometime after midnight, still sitting in the chair by the wall. He didn't remember falling asleep. His throat burned. His chest ached like he'd been holding his breath for hours. The air was heavy again, humid, metallic. The walls glistened faintly in the light from the street lamp outside. He rubbed his face. His skin felt damp, clammy. When he looked at his palms, they shimmered faintly with condensation. The whisper came back, so soft it could have been the sound of his own breathing. "Jack." He looked at the wall. "I told you to stop." "We didn't start it." The voice sounded closer now, right behind the plaster. He swallowed. "Then who did?" A pause. Then, almost gently, "You did." He stood up slowly. No, I didn't. You opened the wall. You let us breathe." Jack pressed his hand against the plaster. It was warm again. Beneath it, he could feel faint movement, small, rhythmic tremors, like the pulse of veins. "What are you?" "We were here before you, before the house, before any of you learned how to breathe." The air grew thicker with every word. Each breath he took came slower, heavier, like he was inhaling through mud. He stumbled back, coughing. The radio on the counter clicked on. Static filled the air. Then, through it, came the same calm voice from before. "Jack, listen to me." He froze. "Who is this?" "I told you not to open it." The voice sounded different now, tired, distorted by static and distance. "They get inside you when you listen too long. That's how they spread. The walls. They were never walls. They're lungs. They breathe through us." Jack shook his head violently. No. You're not in the house anymore, Jack. You're part of it." The room tilted. The ceiling pulsed like a heartbeat. He stumbled toward the door, but it wasn't there anymore. The frame had sealed over, smooth and pale, like fresh plaster. He turned back, gasping, his vision swimming. The radio voice grew softer, like someone fading down a long hallway. "You'll stop fighting soon. It's easier when you let it breathe for you." He fell to his knees, hands pressed to his chest. His heartbeat was slowing, sinking with something deeper, slower. The air pressed against his skin like water. Each inhale pulled from somewhere outside of him, through the walls, through the floor. "There you go," the voice whispered. "That's it." He opened his mouth to scream, but all that came out was a wet exhale. The lights flickered, dimmed, and went out. For a moment there was only the sound of breathing, steady, deep all around him. Then, faintly through the darkness, came the voice again. But it wasn't the radio this time. It was his own. "Don't open the wall." The breathing slowed. Silence returned. By morning, the house on Ridgeway Lane stood perfectly still. No sign of damage, no hole in the wall, no trace of Jack Mercer. Just a faint dampness in the air, and if you listened close enough, the soft sound of someone breathing behind the plaster. In, out, out. That was the voice inside the walls. Some houses aren't haunted. They're alive, and every breath they take needs someone to give it to them. So if you ever hear someone whisper through the walls at night, don't answer, because once you do, it already knows your name. You've been listening to Camp Creeps. We'll see you next time by the fire, if your house lets you leave. If you made it this far, you must enjoy the dark. So go on, subscribe to Camp Creeps, like the video, and share it so others can sit with us by the fire. We tell stories here every week, stories you'll never forget. But be careful. If you leave without subscribing, well, the next story might come looking for you. This is Camp Creeps, where the stories don't end when the fire dies.